Alright, several of you messaged me to do a video on fragrances for Thanksgiving. There are special fragrances that I wear during the Thanksgiving holiday around that time, and I like them to be warm and spicy, but also kind of dessert-like. I like fragrances that are gourmands, dessert-like, pastries, you know, crisps and pies and things like that. So I wanted to put this video together for that specific holiday as it's just around the corner. And a few of you also asked me to focus on apple crisp. Now I know some of the fragrances here might have apple crisp or apples in the notes, and it might come off like apple pie and things like that, but this video is not specifically on this particular style, but there are several in this video. Either way, fragrances that are perfect for Thanksgiving or fragrances that will remind you of Thanksgiving coming right up. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is Sebastian. Yes, today I'm talking about fragrances that smell like Thanksgiving, or fragrances I like to wear during the Thanksgiving holiday. Yummy, gooey, pastry, dessert, gourmand style fragrances. Some boozy as well. And of course there are fragrances in here that are similar to apple pie or apple crisp. But before I get to them though, if this is your first time tuning in and you still haven't subscribed, please do click the subscribe button below. And also click the bell so that you'll be notified for future videos and giveaways. What do you guys like to wear during the Thanksgiving holiday? I know many of you probably do not celebrate Thanksgiving because you're not in the States, but you know, I have a specific kind of fragrance I like to wear because you know, during the Thanksgiving holiday it's all about cooking, baking, combining spices and special ingredients that are perfect for this particular holiday. And a lot of these fragrances will either smell like it or, you know, remind us of that kind of you know, pastries and desserts and things like that. So let's go ahead and get started with the first one. We're going to the house of L'Artisan Parfumeur. This is Noir Exquise, this one right here. This is a fragrance created by Bertrand Duchaffoul, and it's actually kind of in that same genre as by the Fireplace and a few other fragrances. It's warm and spicy and a little gooey. It has chestnuts, maple sap, vanilla, coffee, ebony wood, tonka beans, sandalwood, and heliotrope. So there's a little bit of a nuttiness in here from that chestnut note and a little bit of a syrupy touch. It smells like syrup, you know, maple syrup. I love maple syrup. I love the way it smells. I love it on pancakes or, you know, waffles and things like that. So I like that about this particular fragrance because it literally smells like a very molassesy, syrupy kind of a maple syrup experience with, you know, light, nutty kind of dessert-like touches. This is Noir Exquise from the house of L'Artisan Parfumeur, and that's number 12. Next fragrance going to the house of A Lab on Fire. This is What We Do in Paris is Secret. Another fragrance that's perfect for Thanksgiving or any holiday actually, the winter holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's. If you like that smell of home cooking at home with, you know, desserts and pastry and dough and spices and things like that, this is perfect for that. This is What We Do in Paris is Secret, and it features tonka beans, honey, lychee fruit, heliotrope, vanilla, Tolu balsam, amber, bergamot, rose. So there's a little bit of a rosy touch in here, but in the end it's very, very nutty, a little tobacco-ish with lots of honey, so it's syrupy, gooey, fruity undertones in here, and also almondy touches comes in as well. So it gets powdery and vanillic with this one. Very, very balsamic. It's a very, very delicious fragrance. I've spoken about this one, but I've spoken more about its alternative that's very, very inexpensive the last couple of weeks. But this to me, even though I think the alternative, it's Youps Le Ban, I think it's a decent alternative, but this is in the more concentrated, a little more luxurious version of that particular fragrance. So if you want the idea of a great, yummy Thanksgiving pastry dessert-like experience, check out What We Do in Paris is Secret. So a lot of fragrances are going to feature lots of tonka beans, and tonka beans I think are perfect. But there are specific fragrances I left off because I want it to be a special kind of a theme, more about you know, like a pastry experience, and I was thinking more like spices and pastries and things like that. There's a few other fragrances, but the next one I'm talking about is from the house of MANOS GERAKINIS. This is Immortelle. So this to me is more like a cookie butter experience. So it's brown sugary caramelized experience with spices, cinnamon, cloves, brown sugar, Immortelle, milk, benzoin, and sandalwood. Very, very delicious experience. And to me, this once again reminds me of cooking at home, making the batter, combining the spices and the dough and the flour and everything together. And when you're mixing it all up, it smells. You know, it's that fragrant, spicy kind of doughy kind of a smell. And this, as I said, reminds me of cookie butter or something like speculoos. Very, very holiday-ish. It smells like the holidays, especially Thanksgiving. If you don't know this one, do check it out. It's very, very yummy, buttery, milky, spicy, brown sugary. Anyway, Immortelle from the house of MANOS GERAKINIS. Very, very yum fragrance. And I spoke about Noir Exquis, and I'm going to feature this one as well. It's by the Fireplace from the house of MAISON MARGIELA. Now, they are different. They're not, you know, identical, because this one features the chestnuts, even though this one does. There's smokiness here. There's not much of a smokiness here, more woodiness. And this one has the maple sap. This, to me, has more vanilla, and it doesn't really necessarily have kind of a maple syrupy or honeyed experience. It has more of a balsamic experience with the Peru balsam. But it's, you know, in that same ballpark. Kind of reminds me of that kind of an idea of a fragrance. And I have one more that's also going to fit into that kind of ballpark as well. But very, very delicious. And this is a very, very popular fragrance. Really, really is delicious. It's got that nuttiness from the chestnuts. It's very, very vanillic. It's very, very syrupy, woody. And there's that light smokiness running throughout it. So it totally, totally reminds me of Thanksgiving. Or even Christmas holiday, you know, when you're at home cooking with the family, getting ready to eat dinner, and then, you know, eating a bunch of desserts kind of a thing. So very, very yummy. So the other thing is great about this particular fragrance is it's got that whole fireplace theme going for it. And you know, in the winter time, you've got that fireplace going, and it's got that kind of smokiness in the air. Anyway, great fragrance, number 9, MAISON MARGIELA by the Fireplace. Check that out if you don't know it. Now this next fragrance is very, very yummy, but also very, very boozy. We are going to the house of by KILIAN. This is Angel's Share, this one right here. So this one to me does remind me a little bit of Parfums de Marly's Wajan. So it's kind of in that same ballpark. But this, to me, gets boozy, whereas the other is not boozy. For me, the other is more like an apple crisp, kind of honeyed, pastry, nutty, kind of baklava kind of an experience. That's what I say with that one. It kind of reminds me of baklava. But this one, to me, is actually just kind of like that appley, kind of cinnamony, syrupy, boozy. You're almost like taking apples, dropping or drizzling kind of like dough on top, and then also drizzling some liqueur, baking it. Or maybe you're baking it before you drizzle the liquor after you take it out. And you drizzle it after you take it out. That's kind of experience it is, because it's a kind of a doughy, kind of boozy, rummy, kind of appley kind of experience. Very, very delicious. I feel like this is definitely a solid release from this house, but you know, it kind of reminds me of something that's been already done, just a different take on it. But still very, very solid, very, very yummy, and it's definitely a Thanksgiving type of a release. So this is Angel's Share from the house of by KILIAN. And speaking of baklava, I'm going to the house of Pearlescent Parfums. This is baklava. I can't believe how great this particular fragrance is. I feel like when I first sampled this, when I had first received it from this house, it wasn't as good as it is now. I think it's matured enough, and when I wear this one now, it actually is really, really intense, and it has a great trail. There's something in here that acts like patchouli, or there is patchouli in here, and musk, and it has this great trail contrasted with kind of like that baklava-ish fruitiness. Very, very delicious. It might go up to the top of the list, but right now I'm feeling it at number 7, and it features notes of sweet orange, bergamot, cherry, almond, pistachio, neroli, baklava, honey, vanilla, patchouli, musk. So, so delicious. This is Pearlescent Parfums, and it's part of the same team of Gallagher Fragrances, but this is a really, really yummy gourmand, guys. Really, really sexy as well, with that kind of the dry down, that trail. That's fantastic. So you've got the gourmand touches, and you've got the sexiness also added to it, and it reminds me of the holidays, but a sexy holiday. Does that make sense? Is there such a thing? Baklava is great. Only thing is, and I mentioned it in the video, we don't, I'm Middle Eastern Mediterranean, because I know baklava. There's no real cherries in baklava, but the cherries in here works really, really well. really well. And in our baklava, we add orange blossom water with the simple syrup that's poured. We don't put honey on ours, but this whole combination with the additional, you know, cherry note and things like that is fantastic. Check this one out. It's absolutely delicious. I think it's a great Thanksgiving fragrance. This is Pearlescent Parfums Baklava. I think I'm going to make this my Thanksgiving fragrance of the day. Check it out. And speaking of Gallagher fragrances, we've got Rosé All Day here. And this one is that one with the apple crisp. It's really yummy, guys. And this is a Rose Gourmand once again. It's actually, you can experience the rose. It's not anything like Intense Cafe, but it's more like literally crisp dough, apples, roses, sugar, syrup, and things like that. It's really delicious and very long lasting. You can totally smell it. In fact, both of them are created by the same people behind, you know, they're different brands, but same person is creating them. I think these are definitely kind of related to me. I definitely have similar smells going for it, but there is that intense patchouli in here that I don't get it in here. I don't know why I get it more in here, but it's leaving a great sexy trail. But this one to me is more gourmand, like in a doughy way, like a syrupy, honeyed kind of a flowy, drippy kind of a way, with a lot of that apple crisp and honey and brown sugar mixed together. And then the rose, of course, that comes in here and creates a kind of a unique twist with the fragrance, where you're thinking it's going to be full-on gourmand, and then there's this rose coming in and interrupting, and it makes for a great interruption kind of a thing. So good. I mean, I almost put this one here at number 6, but in the end I decided to put this here at 6 because I know it a little bit more than baklava. But when I do this list again, probably it'll be ahead of Rosé All Day. But either way, great scent, Rosé All Day at number 6. And at number 5, here is Wajan from the House of Parfums de Marly. Now this one to me does remind me of something kind of like an apple crisp. There is a little bit of an appley touch, even though there's no mention of apples. And then the other thing is this one also, it reminds people of Ombre Narguilé from the House of Hermes. So there is that kind of a thing going for it with this particular fragrance. But to me, I feel like this one has a lot more substance to it. And even though the Hermes might be, you know, the toilette, it might be a lot more lighter experience and a little bit more of a tobacco-ish experience, whereas this one doesn't really have the tobacco. It's more about the cinnamon, honey, tonka beans, benzoin, osmanthus, labdanum, and, you know, it's got osmanthus, so maybe we're getting that apple crispness kind of a thing with the osmanthus, because osmanthus makes things go a little fruity. And of course it does make things go apricot-y, peachy, but maybe all the notes together are creating a kind of a crisp, apple crisp kind of an experience. It's very delicious. It does remind me of a baklava, as I said, but it doesn't really smell too much like a baklava. It just reminds me of it. Very delicious holiday fragrance, Parfums de Marly, Wajan. Check that out if you don't know it. Now this next fragrance is wow. It's wow, one of my favorite fragrances last year. This is from the House of Atelier d'Azores. This is Rouge Sarré. This one right here. Very beautiful with its fruitiness and also its like doughiness and syrupiness. This to me smells like dates, lots of dates with plums chopped up in a bowl, macerating with like honey and spices and light doughy kind of touches, but more syrupy, molassesy experience and light nutty touches in there. Very much so like a very syrupy, gooey kind of a dessert with fruits in it. Kind of a Middle Eastern kind of a dessert to me. That's what it reminds me of. And then you definitely experience the dates in here. You definitely experience the plums contrasted with the spices and the vanilla and the woods, and then of course the Peru balsam in here to create for one intoxicatingly delicious fragrance that totally reminds me of the holidays, especially Thanksgiving. So this is Rouge Sarré from the House of Atelier d'Azores. Check that out if you don't know it yet. Next fragrance, going to the House of Xerjoff. This is Starlight. Once again, a great delicious fragrance. This is totally a Thanksgiving experience. This to me is more like you're making actually the dough. There's not fruits in here, it's more spices. Maybe you're gonna make some cheesecake and you're like, you know, chopping up the whatever things you put in there, like you might put some nuts in there because there's some nuttiness in here. It's all almonds. There's bergamot in here. There's cardamom, so you might put some spices in there like cardamom, cinnamon, and then of course there's some amber, cedarwood, and I do get a caramelly experience with this one. So the whole entire experience is, it's almost like you're making the actual not the cheesecake part, but you know, the exterior, the part that the cheese sits on. It just reminds me of that with this particular fragrance. So you're getting ready to put that cheese over it, and you're smelling this the cake part that you just baked. You took it out of the oven, and it's smoky, and then you can smell that kind of nutty, doughy kind of an experience, a little syrupy and kind of caramelly type of an experience. Very, very delicious. This Starlight is a really yummy fragrance, and I really love it for what it is. It's spicy, almondy, nutty, and then of course caramelly as well. Check that out if you don't know it. Xerjoff's Shooting Stars Collection Starlight. So that is at number 3. And then number 2 and number 1, I'm going with a little more of a spicy experience because these are ones that I wear quite a bit during the Thanksgiving holiday. Number 2, it's Musk Ravageur from the House of Frederic Malle. That's a great yummy fragrance. It's very, very spicy. There's a spiciness, and there's also a very gourmand quality with this one, even though it's a musk. And recently somebody said that I think the reformulation is better for them because the previous version was a lot more muskier and it was not tolerable. I can see that. It's gotten a little more gourmand than it used to be, and it makes sense that this is appreciated by a lot. But you can still smell the musk in here. It's definitely musky, but lots of vanilla in this one, lots of musk, cinnamon, lavender, sandalwood, amber, and patchouli for a very, very sexy gourmand experience. This is one that you want to wear, not smell like a Thanksgiving dish, but you know, kind of get close to it, you know? The spices, there's a caramelly experience in this one as well. The vanilla and the musk together, you'll get a lot of heads turning with this one because it's quite sexy, especially if you're going to a dinner where there's a lot of people and you're moving around. It's warm inside. You know, somebody's going to smell you and say, "Hey, what are you wearing?" That kind of a thing. So this is Musk Ravageur from Frederic Malle at number 2. And my number one is one of my favorite Thanksgiving fragrances. I wear this one quite a bit, although the last couple of years I haven't. And every time I wore it for Thanksgiving, I'd get compliments, whether from family or if I'm out and about, whatever I'm doing outside of the house. This is Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille at number 1. And you know, this is amazing. It's a great fragrance. It's one of the best fragrances from this house. Probably the best fragrance from the private blend. Probably the one that sells the most. It's a great fragrance with tobacco and vanilla. But you know, the spices and the fruits and things like that, the vanilla in here, kind of, you forget about the tobacco, even though it's tobacco. And hey, sometimes there's smoking going on in the houses when you go to your family's houses. You know, there's a smoker and things like that. So the spices are mixed in with the smoking and the ashiness because this does come off a little ashy. But the vanilla, the spices, and the cacao and the tonka and the fruitiness, the dried fruits in here, and the woods together, it's actually really, really delicious and one of the best fragrances for me. I think it's a great holiday fragrance. I absolutely love it, and it's perfect fragrance for Valentine's Day? Where the hell did that come from? For Thanksgiving Day. Anyway, this is Tom Ford's Tobacco Vanille at number 1. And what are your favorite fragrances to wear for Thanksgiving? Or what are fragrances that smell like Thanksgiving to you? Put some comments down so I can find out. Either way, guys, I hope you all have a happy Thanksgiving. Not for another week or so, but hopefully you'll have a great one, and come back for more videos here. But if you have any questions or comments in the meantime, put a comment down and let me know what you're going to be wearing. Let me know what you think about these fragrances. Do you like them? And suggest some other fragrances that are perfect for Thanksgiving. I'd like to find out. Anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. As I said, if you have any questions or comments, please list below. Please like this video. Please share it. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I'll be back with more videos very soon. Have a good one. Goodbye. Alright, I've got 2 more fragrances for you, bonus fragrances, and I'm not trying to make this a Gallagher Fragrances or Pearlescent Parfums video. This is the third fragrance I'm going to feature from this house, or these two houses. And they have a new fragrance called Midnight Jasmine that also features apple crisp. And even though it does remind me of Rosé All Day, especially since it's created by the same person, they are different fragrances in the end. But this does feature apple crisp. This is Midnight Jasmine with plum, cinnamon, jasmine, rose, golden honey, brown sugar, tonka beans, sandalwood, and amber. It's very, very delicious, guys. Really, really yummy. It's just taking this particular fragrance and going into a different direction, you know? You've got a lot of that apple crisp. You've got a lot of plum. You've got a lot of cinnamon as well. I think those were all featured in the other fragrance, but there's loads of jasmine in here. And you've got to love jasmine. You know, jasmine is a beautiful flower. In this particular fragrance, it's really, really beautiful, contrasted with the gourmand notes. You still have the rose in here that you had in Rosé All Day as well. And then you've got the golden honey, the honey note, and the brown sugar all together to create this one beautifully delicious fragrance that'll remind you of Thanksgiving. Although, you know, it's a very, very floral experience with the jasmine, but still in the background you've got all this gourmand notes that are, you know, the reminders of Thanksgiving. Anyway, this is a Pearlescent Parfums Midnight Jasmine. And then finally, one more fragrance, and I'm featuring this one because it does have that reminder of Noir Exquis from the house of L'Artisan Parfumeur. This is from the house of Molten Brown, and it's Bizarre Brandy. I wanted to feature it because this does smell like the holidays. This does smell like Thanksgiving, and it does feature brandy with tobacco, maple, coffee, cedar, incense, cinnamon, orange, cardamom, and ginger. So you've got all those spices, you've got the booziness from the brandy, but it's not overly boozy. So it's very, very lightly boozy. And you also have that maple, which is also in Noir Exquis. So it's a fragrance that kind of reminds me of that. And I think if you like the idea of these two fragrances, maybe get some samples of both to see which you like prefer over the other. This one doesn't get as woody as Noir Exquis does. This one stays a little more thinner, but I like it for its thinness. It's not, you know, breaking any new ground or anything, but it's a fun fragrance to wear when you don't want it overly intense. Either way, this is Bizarre Brandy from the house of Molten Brown, and that's the last fragrance I'm talking about today. Thank you so much for watching, and again, have a happy Thanksgiving.